Hi guys, welcome to another episode of the Chai Room. I'm Asad Farooqi. I'm joined by Mr. Zaman Masood. So, Islamic school, what do you think kids should go or not go? In the States.
I think I have a pause on this, that they should go or they should not go. I think
A pause or a pod?
pause and pod both, right? The reason is I think it's very important that we should have well established
Yeah.
Islamic schools.
Yeah.
There could be challenges, right? So why should we? I think let's first discuss why we should send our kids, or what is the need, right? So why?
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think one, staying closer to the religion, understanding the values, Islamic values, the culture, all this. That's very important for the kids when they grow up, right?
Mhm.
Because if you put them into other schools, so that's I think the fear parents have, and this is how I think this is my conversation with my kids for my grandkids, right?
Yeah.
So how we balance this up, and should they go to Islamic school, or what they should do, right? So right now, so that's one. So that's the first part is
Yeah.
staying grounded with the understanding the religion, the culture, the values, and the Islamic understanding, right? So because we can't have enough at home, they needs to go and get that understanding and learning, right? The other is education excellence, right? That's another part, that it should be, whatever we have, it should be comparable to a good school, right?
Mhm.
And the third is character building. Do we have the right people to role model, right? So all these aspects we need to evaluate, and then take the decision that should we send the kids, right? So these are the things which comes to everybody's mind, right?
Yeah.
But I think if you ask my generation, I don't have a lot of experience being in US and going and seeing these institutions. Of course, I go to mosque and meet some people there, but I haven't really gone to a Islamic school. But I think our generation,
Yeah.
our responsibility, and the way I see it, it was to create enough infrastructure that build up enough mosques, people go, pray, get together, right? That's, I think, has been done very well. If you go and see the mosques in Atlanta,
Yeah.
other places, so that's there.
Okay.
The next phase is to really build the affiliate institutions there.
Okay.
There are some.
Mm.
How good they are, I don't know, right? I go back 30 years where I worked with some friends. We were volunteers and we were working on building some content, some work on having these institutions and certain stuff online as well. A lot has been done in this
Yeah.
space. I think your perspective is very important because what you experience,
Yeah.
right? So share that with us, that you went to Islamic school for 2 years, I believe, right?
Yeah. 7th
So-
and 8th grade.
Yeah. So why? I gave you the why as parent.
Yeah.
Why, right? Because we want to see that you stay grounded, you stay closer to the religion, values.
Mhm.
So
I mean, as a kid, it was a lot of fun. And this was right after, obviously, my mother passed away, and then my dad decided to send me there. So it's a private school. It was in downtown, and we didn't live nearby, so I had to travel, take MARTA. So I'd take a MARTA bus. I'd get to the train station, Lindbergh. I'd take the train to Art Center, and then from Art Center I'd take another bus, and then I'd walk a little bit longer, and I'd get there. So it was a good trek every day. So I guess in a way it also taught me some responsibility of how, like, even though I was 12 when I started, to realize that this is kind of what life is like. That's how you learn, right? Through the struggle. So waking up early, super early, and then getting to the bus on time, because if you miss the bus, then you're going to be late, and that won't fly. So taught me that. And then obviously I think that was the first time I kind of made friends where I felt like these are real friends and they're not judging me. And, I guess, you have similar ideals. Many are from the same culture. And so that part was great. I think where it became a bit of a question mark for me was just the overall education. At times, I thought that the amount of teachers that would change and they would constantly rotate, and that wasn't the teacher's fault. It's not the school's fault. It's anytime you're underfunded, it'll be a revolving door because you're not paying them enough to stay. They find a better opportunity. They're going to take that opportunity, and many of them did. Some did stick around, but I felt also the standard was not necessarily maintained to mirror the standard of a regular middle school or 7th or 8th grade and at the public school level. A lot of fun, but I think that is something that I found later, because I think in 9th grade, when I was in all advanced subjects, whether it was geometry or English and whatnot, I was taking advanced classes, I did have trouble in some of those classes. And I feel like they didn't quite prepare me in middle school as well as maybe they could have. Some of it was me too. I could have studied harder, I guess. But apart from that, I think that leadership and the structure with which, like the pyramid structure, I like to call it, in terms of leadership in a school is really important. And I felt in that school there were just, I don't think the leadership quite worked. And we found that out later, because then that very school, I was a board member of theirs just right after COVID. A really good friend of mine who went to school with me there, who was heading the board, asked me to be on there. And then, because they were finally looking to make changes, because it was a school that had kind of fallen behind and was almost on the verge of bankruptcy just like 8-10 years ago. And then somehow they got out of that, they climbed out of that. But it just wasn't going well, because I think the way it was run, it was being run down to the ground. I think and this is the thing, right? Like with religion, at times it's you don't really know how to kind of juggle the conservatism with the culture, right? And that mishmash for adults, forget kids, for adults it's really hard. I don't think they're able to figure out, wait, this is culture, this is religion, so they'll mix it and make, a smoothie out of it, and then they hope that, the kids will drink it. And sometimes it doesn't work that way. I recall times where, we'd be in morning assembly, so the entire school, the elementary school and the middle school, and there was no high school, it was just the elementary school up to 8th grade. So we'd all gather for what was called morning assembly. It was the kindergartners all the way to 8th grade. We'd all sit there, and then they would lead short sort of knowledge sessions, prayer sessions in the morning assembly, and the principal would. And I just recall, this is just sometimes the way that some students would be treated in that moment was just harrowing, because the girls had to cover their head, which is fine. But then, I remember, one girl's hair was showing, some strands were showing, and the teacher yelled at her out loud in front of everybody, and she started crying. And I don't know what the long-term impact of that was. I feel like a lot of, and that wasn't an isolated incident. This happened a few times, where it's just the teachers, to them, the discipline was just getting loud and yelling at someone, not realizing the impact of embarrassing them in public, the impact that has. And now we realize that today. I never do that. When I'm in that position, I would never. That's just something I don't care for, because I feel like it's embarrassing for the kid, but it should also be embarrassing for the teacher, right? To have this kind of cringeworthy moment. And that happened quite a bit. Then the boys and girls were always partitioned, right? So especially in middle school, in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, they were not allowed to talk to each other at all or look at each other. And if they saw a boy ask a girl a question or vice versa, both of them would be chewed out by the teacher, by the principal, by the vice principal. And you're not allowed to talk to the girl. You're not allowed to talk to the boys. And for me, it's 6th, 7th, 8th grade. Look at that age bracket. You're 12, 13, 14. I mean, that is the age where you do want to talk to the opposite gender. That's just the way it works, right? You've just reached puberty. Like, what are we talking about? So you can't tell them at that age, oh, you can't. It just makes no sense. And I feel like the harshness with which they reacted caused some of the kids to actually want to do that more. Do you know what I mean? When you make a big deal out of something, people want to do it more. When you ban something, you say you are not allowed to go out after 10 p.m., your kid will go out after 10 p.m. Because now it's the drama of it, oh my God, I might get in trouble. It's kind of cool. I'm not allowed to be out. I want to do this. You're not allowed to watch this movie. Okay, are the parents asleep? Let's put in the movie. Let's watch it. Right? This happens at home. So it's this reaction that you have to something you're not allowed to do, especially at that age. And so kids were doing that. There were boys and girls who were hanging out and they're hiding, they're tossing notes in each other's lockers and things like that. And, you know, when you notice it, it's like, yeah, I don't think this particular way of running the school is quite working. You know, I feel there's a calmer, softer way of you know, implementing the ideals of religion, if you will. And getting students to kind of buy in without yelling or being as harsh as some of those teachers were at times. Because I do think that impacted some of of my classmates, and I look at them now and they're completely different. Mm-hmm. And I feel like in a way that isn't necessarily Muslim, if you will, right? Mm-hmm. And so I feel like that particular education and the style had an adverse effect into their adult years, because as soon as then they got into high school, everything was different, right? Mm-hmm. It was public school, it's different, it's America, and it's what they call a secular education. And so they changed. They're like, well, I don't want to follow that. I don't want people yelling at me. This is easier. And I think that a lot of it was just, if you didn't implement so strictly, and if you didn't start suspending students for laughing, like I remember, like I would be, this is really bad, but I want to share it. I think it's important. So we had a teacher, I believe he was from Somalia. He was a math teacher, but he was our main teacher, as a homeroom teacher. You know, you have different teachers who teach different subjects, but then you have the main teacher as well. So he was a math teacher. Yeah, exactly. So that's what he was. And, you know, we were at that age of 12 and 13, you know, we're completely screwing around. We're being boys. We're being dumb. It was, you know, he had a heavy accent. And so students would pick at that. Like, he would pronounce certain words in math, and like people would start laughing. Students would laugh, or then they'd do something. And he had this thing on the board which said no PE, and he would write your name down, meaning you're not allowed to be for PE. Yeah. And PE should not be, you know, a privilege. Like, it's a requirement. Mm-hmm. It's a part of development, just like English or math is. But to him, he was allowed to do that. There were students who literally the entire semester didn't have PE.
They should have changed.
Because he just canceled it. Yeah, and no one stopped that.
तो behavior क्यों नहीं change किया उन्होंने बच्चों ने?
तो टीचर अपना बिहेवियर बदल देता ना. तो क्या हो गया अगर वो मजाक उड़ा रहे हैं, 12 साल के बच्चे हैं, तो उसमें क्या है? उन्हें थोड़ा मजाक उड़ा लिया, it's okay, get over it.
But how you discipline them, right?
Yeah, how you discipline them. You can't just be like, and then you write this name down. I mean, students got suspended. Yeah, you just cannot.
You influence them, right? So
yeah.
You influence them in the right way.
I'll tell you, it's not a great moment for me, but because we're here and I said we'll be vulnerable and we'll be as honest as possible with what we share. I remember we had an Arabic teacher. He was the Arabic Islamic Studies Quran teacher, and I was in like the advanced class in 8th grade for those 3 subjects. And I was completely, even though I was doing well in school, I was not necessarily a good kid. Do you know what I mean? Like, I did well. Shararti yeah, Shararti, and like, but I did well.
Not a good kid means many different, right?
So I mean, like, I wasn't like I was failing. I was doing well, right, in the subjects, but I was also acting up, and I was being a goofball, and so there is this moment towards the end of the year where like the work lessons, and then they start participating in like different sort of activities, and certain students, they were creating posters for like graduation of 7th, 8th grade and this and that. So that teacher, he was a big part of that, right? And so he would have his briefcase, and then he would allow us to go work on certain stuff while he worked with the 2 or 3 of his chosen students on creating calligraphy and this and that. So anyways, he had his briefcase open, and he had a bunch of dollar bills in there, right? It was like 7 or 8 $1 bills that were there. And I saw it, and we had a vending machine, right? And I didn't have any money, but I wanted that honey bun that was in there. And if you know me, I love sugar, and I wanted the honey bun. So it was there, and I saw it, and I was like, ugh. I was thinking, I looked out, and I was like, okay, he's busy, and then everyone's busy. No one's in the classroom. I go in, I grabbed the dollar, just $1. I didn't take all of it, just $1. And I got myself the honey bun, right? Great, done, ate it, right? Class is going on. An hour later, he calls the entire class inside. Calls the entire class inside.
How old you were?
12.
12. Oh, okay.
12 maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think I was 12, maybe 13. It could have been 13. And we come in.
I can imagine.
Yeah. This teacher also had a bit of an accent, by the way. But that wasn't, we weren't making fun of it because he was a bit more strict. And so he said, okay, something happened. I was like, oh no, like somebody had obviously tattled, somebody told on me, and I don't blame them for doing that. I mean, whatever, to each their own. Tattled, they said it, right? And then he made me stand up. He said, stand up to me. I was like, right? And then he embarrassed me in front of the whole class. And I don't know, like it's not that he was wrong, because I was wrong in what I did.
Yeah.
Right? I stole $1.
But how, the path he chose to
me, the path was questionable. In that moment, that is a moment for you to teach me something, right? And if you are a teacher of youngsters at the 12 and 13 age bracket, you should have a far better background on where those kids are coming from, what they've been through, all of that, and right? Because you meet with the parents, and that obviously when I teach, there's no parents involved, right? Like it's adults dealing with adults. But in that case, you are dealing with parents. And he embarrassed me, right? And then I think he suspended me for a day or in-school suspension.
Okay.
But was he wrong? He wasn't wrong, because he called me out on, but I felt like that style of calling me out and embarrassing me in front of everybody was problematic. He could have taken me to the side and said, did you do this? Why did you do it? And we could have had a conversation. My respect for him would have gone up so much more. But instead, he chose the other way around, let me embarrass him in front of everyone and make an example out of it, and kind of made a mockery out of it. So, mockery out of me. So I felt in that moment, I was like, if I'm ever in that position, I won't do that. But with that being said, I shouldn't have done what I did. You know what I mean? Okay. So that's kind of how it works. Any last thoughts before we wrap?
No, I think thanks for sharing what we shared, right? So sometimes we don't share these things.